Welcome to Certain Point of View, your first step into a much nerdier world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com. And now, your hosts, Ben Milton and Addy Thomas.
Hey, Nerve Herders, thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View. I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Today we are talking about The Walking Dead mid-season finale, and we are in interesting positions here. But before we get into this episode and into that really ambiguous statement, we're in interesting positions.
It sounded a lot dirtier than it probably was intended. Wow.
Yep. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, you know what? Just leave it there.
We're just going to let that hang there.
Let it hang there.
Wait a minute.
While it hangs there, can you tell us about Patreon?
Patreon is a really cool way that you can support the show. Please do if you're interested. It's a way that you can throw a couple bucks to us. Head to our website at certainpov.com and click on support. You can find a really cool video that explains Patreon, how it works, and why we're doing it. And it's a way for you to support the show and the Certain Point of View brand so that we can continue to bring you not only this podcast, which we're going to continue to do for free,
no matter
probably
what,
forever until one of us drops dead, but all sorts of other cool projects that we want to do.
And even if you don't feel like, giving money to the show, share it with a friend of yours, another person that you like talking, having nerdy discussions with, someone else that's a fellow nerd as well. Again, our website, certainpov.com. All social media info is there. Let's get to the episode itself. Walking Dead mid-season finale. I am a Walking Dead superfan. There is no doubt that I have a bias. I love the comic. The moment a comic releases, I see it pop up on my phone. I head to the bathroom and I read it. Like, I'm just like, nothing else matters right now. I have a new issue of The Walking Dead, and it's no surprise that I enjoy the show. But this season has been very interesting ever since the divisive finale from last year, and I did not enjoy the way they ended that finale. I enjoyed the content of that finale episode, and I enjoyed that season. But the sort of I felt it was a pretty cheap ending, cliffhanger ending, and they should have had more faith in the audience coming back to the show after killing off Glenn and Abraham.
Right.
And it would have been fine if I would have been happy if they killed Abraham at the mid-season finale, or at the last season's finale, and then killed Glenn at the beginning of this one. It would have totally accomplished what they wanted to, I think. I think that would have been better, to be perfectly honest. But that's another topic. This season, though, we moved on from the reveal of who died, but the debate has been, do people like Negan? How do people feel about the pacing of the show and the nature of the show and the characters? Rick, Carol are especially divisive. Do people even enjoy the other communities that have been introduced in this series? So, Ben, where do you kind of fall on this season?
Well,
I know it's no longer must-see TV for you.
It's not must-see TV for me. It's must-see TV for my wife, so therefore it is must-see TV for me, despite my protests. It's fallen short for me along the way. Last season's finale really fell flat for me and kind of left a really bad taste in my mouth. And you can say, well, they picked up when in the new season with the opener, and they handled that well and whatever. Or you could say, and I kind of feel like this, like it's kind of become murder porn. In a lot of ways, where they're just now like just killing people in gruesome ways, just people killing people. Whereas before it was zombies killing people a lot of times, and people killing zombies. There was lots of zombie killings, and then every once in a while somebody would die. I don't know. I just like it like that season opener. I was watching it and I was like, okay, yeah, this is exactly how it happened in the comic books for the most part.
Right.
And they handled it well, and Glenn's death is almost identical. And they threw in a bone and threw in Abraham. But as I was watching it, I just became uncomfortable with it and thinking, this isn't really like how I want to spend my Sunday evening right before I go to bed. Like, this is just kind of like just making you uncomfortable just to make you uncomfortable's sake. I don't really feel like it had...
You didn't feel it had a point anymore?
No. I don't feel like they're really going anywhere this season. I don't feel like they're leading to anything other than more violence I don't think they have I don't think there's a story to tell other than we're just killing each other as people. There hasn't been anything in this season to make me feel that way or to lead me to believe that there is anything bigger than that going on. I know you have a different perspective because you've read the comic books and you kind of know what happens after All Out War.
And I think that's why I am maybe maybe I'm more forgiving to this show than I think I am. I enjoy it. I totally dig Jeffrey T. Morgan as Negan. I know there are a lot of people who hate his delivery, but that is exactly how I imagine Negan in the comics. He is a very over-the-top villain, scarf and leather jacket with a baseball bat, who monologues pretty much all the time. But I love him for it. Because they aren't gonna go with the amount of swearing that he has, because he creatively uses the F word as much. Like, he uses fuck like nobody else does. Like, there's got to be like a 3 to 5 fuck per sentence quota, and sometimes conjugated differently, and that works in the comic. I think his mannerisms and his personality and his charisma exist on the show. But he is definitely a very comic booky character. Right. He is very over the top. He is not. If you're looking for Breaking Bad type drama, this is not the season for you. Right. I totally get that. If people were getting that feeling like they were getting that kind of story from The Walking Dead, then I could see this season being something that people don't enjoy. I never felt I got that from The Walking Dead, though. I felt from the very beginning it was a very comic booky show. I remember watching season 2 and feeling like I was watching a comic book come alive.
Well, I'm going to stop you there because I think there's a difference between, like, yes, it's influenced on a comic book and it has shots like a comic book. But I think like it felt very grounded.
You think so?
All along the way.
I never felt the governor was like that.
I thought the governor was stupid, but I didn't feel like it was like
Terminus.
No, I thought Terminus was really grounded. I thought it made sense. Yeah, I thought it made sense. When I look at Negan and I go, that doesn't make sense. Why hasn't somebody killed this asshole already? Like,
because his group is just as vile. So one of the things that is different from the comics, if I remember correctly. So you remember there was a group. This is a couple seasons ago. Remember the Claimers? Do you remember those guys?
Yeah.
You remember how they were like gonna rape Carl?
Mm-hmm.
So that group was actually one of Negan's groups.
Okay.
So that story, if I remember this right, maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but so there's all the story with the outpost of Negan's group, and then the guys that Abraham kills with the bazooka and all that stuff like that's not in the comics,
right?
A lot of the buildup we've had to the Saviors are not in the comics. So the Saviors are a much more vile group of people.
Yeah, but see, they haven't established that in the show,
and I think that,
and that's so you look at it, you go, well, why hasn't somebody just shot this guy? Like, everybody hates him, everybody's standing around like this guy's an asshole. Somebody kill him. He's got a baseball bat. Everybody else has guns.
Right.
Why hasn't anybody just shot him? And like,
you don't feel the group that he actually rolls with.
I feel like there's a couple guys like that. I feel like there's there's a couple guys like that. But I don't feel like it's like this overwhelming majority. And even if they are, guys like that, like, aren't like team players either. Like, they're all gonna want to be the top dog too. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that he wouldn't have been killed.
You've never seen Jocks have a code?
Yeah, but you've never seen a prison riot.
Oh, that's fair.
Like, I mean, guys, you get that much testosterone going through you, like a Negan character, right? There's going to be there's a reaction to that of just like, all right, you've pushed me, you're going to try and burn my face with a hot iron.
Oh yeah,
fuck you! I'm going to put a bullet in your head,
right?
Like. It's more like the tone of the show has changed, just like it did in episode 100 of the comic book, where he was like, we gotta, like, it's a restart.
It's a status quo.
It's a restart. We gotta completely restructure everything, and it's a culture. Everything is changing, and I can see how fans who aren't as invested in the comic book are feeling like, wait a minute, I'm not really sure what's going on with this show. Because you don't usually get that with a show. You don't get 6, 7 seasons into a show and then everybody goes, all right, well, we're just going to really shake shit up and we're just going to try and, go some really different directions.
Right.
And really change the tone of the show. And I feel like that's happening, and you're seeing, some growing pains as a result of that.
Right.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's an interesting story to tell. I don't know that they're telling it in the most effective way, though.
Right.
When you talk about the pacing of the show that people have complaining about, of like just sticking with one character for an entire episode and then like you don't see them again for 4 or 5 episodes, has been like it slows things down in a way. Like
right.
where it works when you have multiple stories going along. You can kind of cut back and forth between the stories of what's happening, because that's real. Like a lot of the stuff is happening at the same time.
Right. I think there's two issues with that, because I remember Game of Thrones, not last season but the season before, having those issues where there were so many stories you were cutting between that you felt you were making no progress. Right. I think that's a danger with that, but I think there is a balance you can run with that. I think the Kingdom. I totally enjoyed the episode with the Kingdom. I thought it was a nice one. It was right after the death of Glenn and Abraham, and it was a nice way to lighten up the story a little bit right after that. And I really liked just sort of how outlandish the Kingdom seems in the context of the story. I liked the Hilltop episode, getting to know the dynamics, but I think you can afford to cut the Hilltop episode along with something that's happening in Alexandria. I
thought you could have done that with both of those stories.
Yeah, I think Tara's episode was one where you really could have cut that along with another story. And I thought they did some really interesting things in that episode, but they absolutely could have afforded to endear you to other characters in that time.
Well, I think
I think that would have been a very interesting episode to cut along with Daryl's episode.
Well, the thing, they're still in this mode of like, we're gonna hide things from the audience, of like, we're not gonna tell you what happened to Maggie. Oh, we don't know where Maggie is. Like, is Maggie at the Hilltop, or is she in Alexandria? Is Negan gonna find Maggie in Alexandria? Like, that episode was just stupid. Like, that whole plot, like, that was not necessary. Like, I'm tired of.
You felt they were holding information back from
you? I felt like they were trying, like they were playing coy with it. Kind of like how they were playing coy with like, oh, is Glenn gonna die this season? Last season?
Yeah, that was annoying last season. Absolutely.
I felt like they were kind of doing that again a little bit with Maggie, and where was she? In the first couple episodes of the season,
she said she was going to the Hilltop.
Yeah. But you didn't know that. You didn't know if she made it. You didn't know where she was. And,
that's true.
And they were like pretending she was dead in Alexandria. They told Negan she was dead.
Right.
So like they're, it's just, and you didn't see her for 3 episodes after, in that arc where
that episode we had already seen.
No, you don't know where she is. You don't know where she is.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So like they're still doing shit like that in this show, which drives me nuts, where it's just like, okay, like that's just not necessary. Like that's just being goof. Like you're doing 1980s TV tricks on me, and it's not working. Like it's not entertaining to me anymore. So I wish they would stop doing things like that and just tell a good story instead of trying to rely on all these tricks of like, oh, a cliffhanger ending and all these, smoke and mirror tricks that they're doing throughout the season.
Now, let me ask you this. What do you think of the characters and where they are? So I know, well, let's pick a couple characters here and there. So Rick, great place to start.
I thought they did a great job of addressing the trauma and the horror of Abraham and Glenn's death to him, and just how utterly broken Negan made him.
Yeah.
It's not compelling television to us. It's not the Rick I want to see, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not interested in broken, crying Rick, where he just stares into the screen with eyes filled with tears and, looks completely defeated. That's not, like, I didn't really want to see that. Like, it wasn't really anything I wanted to see.
Do you think the fact that you feel that way is compelling in its own way, or is it just frustrating to watch?
It's compelling the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
After that, it's frustrating to watch.
Okay.
Where you're just like, okay, like we've seen you overcome a lot of dumb shit. Like you've killed a lot of people. You know, people have died along the way.
Yeah.
Your best friend slept with your wife, had a baby with her. You're and you're upset that the pizza guy died.
Okay, come on. It's more than the pizza guy.
Yeah, I suppose.
No. Hold on.
He is.
You can't.
I
I'm sorry. You
understand.
can't minimize that way. He's one of the first people that saves Rick.
Yes, but I never got the feeling in that story that they were best friends.
What?
Yeah, I mean him and Daryl for sure, but I never got the feeling that Glenn and Rick were best buds. What led you to believe that?
I think both of them had lots of moments throughout the series.
Okay.
The first time they ever covered guts, it was the two of them together when they're in Atlanta.
That's a necessity thing into survival. That's not like I care about you.
I think
I'd cover you in guts, but that doesn't mean that I would want to hang out with you.
Oh, first off, we know that's not true.
I do love you, but we're best friends. I don't remember any scenes like
the prison. They had a couple moments.
Most of the
prison.
time in the prison, Glenn was sick.
That was half a season.
That was most of the season.
There were 2 seasons in the prison.
I don't remember. I just don't. I didn't remember that relationship being super strong.
Yeah,
not like Daryl and I always imagine
Daryl and Rick was the bromance.
Yeah, that was the bromance, and Maggie and Glenn obviously.
Rick went into Woodbury to save Glenn and Maggie.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know, but he would have went in to save anybody.
You can't.
He would have went in to save anybody. He would have went in to save anybody.
Okay.
You could have. I mean, those could have been any characters.
There were some bonding moments also in season 2 when they're fighting it out in that bar when they try to bring Herschel back after they completely destroy the barn. Mm-hmm. He also has some moments with Glenn when they're talking about Lori and some of the issues he's having with her. So I get I get that you didn't feel that I guess Glenn wasn't that big of a deal to you.
I thought he was a great character. I thought he was one of the most interesting characters on the show.
But you didn't feel he was close to Rick?
I didn't think that they were, best friends. And Shane and him were best friends, and it didn't bother him that Shane died that much.
Well, that was a different arc for that story.
I'm just saying
they clashed. They legitimately clashed.
Yes.
And it's not just philosophically.
It seemed like a bit.
And he was
Rick's reaction. Rick's reaction to the deaths, when you consider everything that's happened up to this point, seems like a bit of it's either an overreaction or a really interesting commentary on PTSD.
I think you're coming off a season where Rick has a family that in the first half of last season, he prioritizes them over the Alexandrians. So that's why that also works for me, because he has this family unit that he cares about more than the others. He comes to terms with okay, he needs to care about all of Alexandria as well, but this is still his core family. Okay. So that's why I felt, Glenn and Abraham to a lesser extent. I think they're a little less connected, but still he's, an important part of their family. I did feel those losses were important,
Okay. I guess I have always kind of seen Rick as sort of like this aloof leader. Where he doesn't where he's too busy leading to really care about anybody else but himself.
Yeah.
And that's sort of like the weakness of his character. So I guess I was kind of it doesn't quite ring true. I think you're making some valid points, but I don't think it quite rings true for me, just because I don't see his character that way. And it hasn't been.
Just remember when they first went into Alexandria, the whole group stayed in the same house together.
Yeah. But that makes sense.
You wouldn't do that in a zombie apocalypse.
The hell I totally would, because that makes sense from a tactical standpoint. You don't trust these people. And based on everything that's happened, you don't trust these people.
That's true. Okay.
So it's not like, I just love these people so much. No, I know this guy's probably not going to stab me in the back.
That's true. Okay.
Kind of a thing.
All right.
So, that. So to answer your question about Rick, I don't
Yeah.
think it's been. Andrew Lincoln's done a great job.
Yeah.
Amazing acting. Like he's putting everything he's got into every scene. But I'm tired of it. I was relieved at the mid-season finale when they finally got the band back together again.
Yeah.
And they were like, okay,
I think
Rick's back.
I think it's going to be interesting. Rick is still the main character for the show, but I think definitely at where I've seen the comics go, other characters start becoming more and more important. Maggie becomes a very, very important character, and I like the arc that they're starting to take her on. Making her like more of a leader at the hilltop, and her. One of the decisions, they didn't really bring it up this way in the show, but I wonder if it's implied, but she doesn't really want to come back to Alexandria because of the memories she has of Glenn there. So that's part of the reason why she decides to go to the hilltop and stay at the hilltop. So
yeah, they haven't dealt with. I mean, they haven't said that yet. But,
yeah,
I mean, it would. I think they need to. I don't think that you can just leave her there without addressing that.
Right.
And having some sort of confrontation about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think I did like. I've liked what they've done with Daryl. I mean, they've broken Daryl down again, and I liked in an escape when he just beats the crap out of Fat Joe. So yeah, I like the arcs there. I like what they've done with Dwight. They, you don't really want to trust him, but there are certain ways that they want you to, to empathize with him a little bit, but having that sort of questionable, like, should we trust him or not, is a very, I think.
Well, that's that's kind of one of those cases that I was kind of referring to about Negan and like, how does this guy still have power?
Yeah.
Where you see like Dwight, like, I just hate this guy. Like, he burnt my face. He stole my wife.
Yeah.
He makes me go do these horrible things. Like he's like you see him openly questioning Negan and like really pulling against the chains. It seems weird to me that there hasn't been any kind of rebellion against this guy.
Right.
Yeah. It just seems odd, and that because like all right, well, you kill him. All right, well, now I'm the big man on campus. It's like when the bully is in town, somebody's going to punch the bully in the nose, knock him out, and now you're the new big man on campus. Like, that's how that works. Like, it just seems odd that Negan's never really been challenged that we've seen.
Yeah.
And Dwight would be one of those people that I would assume will eventually challenge Negan, and there's got to be more of him.
Right. Let's see. Who else have we had some major development with?
Carol.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Carol? Because I'm kind of ambivalent. What do you think about Carol?
Last season, I felt the pacifist arc for Carol was interesting. It has gone too long now. When she got to the kingdom and was still sort of in this weird pacifist funk, I got tired of it. I was like, okay, like, except where you are, like, why? Like, I don't get the. I know a lot of people don't like this pacifist arc for Carol. I liked the wolf, going back a little bit. So you have the wolves invasion episode from last season, and that's where you have the moment where Morgan realizes his stance is imperfect and Carol realizes her stance is imperfect. And it sets them both on kind of this journey on like self-doubt. Carol has, you have the little kid that she threatens to kill and poison and all that kind of stuff. And she sees that wolf sacrifice himself. So she sees someone who was formerly super brutal redeem himself. And then she sees the kid, the kid that she threatened, in fear, basically die and cause other people's deaths. So having that on her conscience is what pushed her down that road.
Having what on her conscience? She had nothing to do with really either of those moments.
Yeah, that's what they see. And this is where it's poorly done, because in the episodes following those deaths, they flash back to those moments with her, and she thinks about that little kid's death, and
it's not her fault.
She considers it her fault by putting that fear into him and knowing that fear and him not being able to stand.
I see what you're saying.
That's what they did, and they did a poor job with it. I'll give you that.
Because I completely missed that.
See,
if that's what they were trying to go with. I completely missed.
And
that.
see, I think that's why I saw that, and I feel like other people have missed that, and it's true. It was I guess that wasn't well done, but she feels she has those deaths on her conscience because of the way she operates, and that's why she's in this funk now. I was even fine with the kind of the episode she had with that first group of saviors, where she didn't really want to get out of that situation. It was with her and Maggie, right? I think.
No. What where they tried to kill her and shot her up? Are you talking about that? No, that was with her and Maggie wasn't there because Maggie was in the RV. It was what's his name with the bow staff.
No, you're thinking at the very end of the season. Earlier in the season, remember there was a savior, the redhead. I forget. Remember because she got captured outside of the outpost for a little while.
I don't remember that.
So remember when they go and kill everyone at the outpost?
Yeah.
Carol.
Oh right. Yeah.
And Maggie are captured for a little while.
Yeah.
And Rick and company eventually get, but Carol makes sure to, systematically kill those people. But even she still kind of wants to die in that process. That's where they've been, kind of. So like, there's a lot of time that they've been spending on this story, but people just haven't been enjoying it. And I totally get that.
Because it doesn't make a lot of sense
for how badass she's become. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Like we went from her at Terminus, where she takes out the entire town by herself,
right,
to a few months later, a totally different character.
Yeah,
like it's too sudden of a turn. They didn't set it up well, and it doesn't really fit. Like it doesn't make sense. Like now she's going to be Susie Homemaker off by herself in the woods. And think that everything is going to be fine and everybody's going to leave her alone, and she knows damn well that's not how the world works anymore. Right. Like it doesn't make it just like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Like if she's that suicidal, kill herself. Like she doesn't have a problem with that.
And that's sort of where I was kind of weirded out by it. I feel like they've spent too much time on it. I feel like her being introduced to the kingdom should have been finally the place to see her say, you know what, this is batshit crazy, but I'm back. Yeah.
And it's batshit crazy enough for me to feel like I'm comfortable again.
Especially with the moment where I felt Morgan being the one to save her and kill somebody that should have been the defining end of that arc.
Yeah.
Where they both admit that
they need to meet in the middle.
Right. And so that's where I've been the defender of this arc for a long time. Them continuing that story, I'm tired of it now.
Yeah.
Fortunately, we've only had really 2 instances to see that story, but I am tired of that story now. So I will totally admit that's an issue. But I like that idea of Morgan finalizing that arc last season,
and yet they did.
They didn't.
She's Susie Q Homemaker,
right?
In this beautiful house.
Yeah, I
freshly cut lawn.
Yeah, I know, right? I love Ezekiel. I love Shiva, so I'm excited about that.
We didn't get enough of that.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see where they take that and what they do with it. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah.
The effects actually didn't look that bad.
Yeah, for Shiva?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was totally awesome.
Looked pretty good.
It'll be interesting if Shiva in combat looks amazing.
I'm guessing no.
Well, you only need him to take out a couple saviors.
I guess so. So we'll see. I mean, I'm excited for the war that's obviously coming.
Yeah.
The second half of this season.
Yeah.
Where it goes, I don't know, and how satisfying it'll be, I don't know. But I was thankful that I feel like now finally we're doing something. Like, I don't feel like anything has happened for a long time in this show, going back to last season.
Right.
Where it's just been, Negan's coming.
Yeah.
Negan's here. Nothing's happening. All right, now we're going to get
Well, let me ask you this. So Negan and so you have Carl try to kill Negan. You have Jesus also have, emerge a little bit more as a character as well. Very little.
Barely.
Very, very little, yes. But, he's...
Nothing really new that we didn't know about him.
Right. He's a ninja.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a great name, great hair. and loves slapstick comedy with Rick and
Daryl.
Daryl.
But you had Carl try to kill Negan and kill two guys.
I mean, that's not a lot. That's
Yeah.
not a lot. It's not really moving the story forward much.
But
it was an interesting development to have Negan and Carl finally meet and have that relationship start, which was great. That was a lot of fun. I thought that was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah,
seeing
and
those two together.
That's one of my favorite things also about Negan is his fascination with Carl, and that he doesn't want to hurt him in any way. And there were some like oddly human moments with Negan as well in that interaction as well.
Yeah, and I think that makes that character more interesting. It gives it some depth. Like if he was just the psychopath killer and didn't have like this weird soft spot for Carl, he would be completely unredeemable, completely unlikable.
Right.
He would just be an asshole all the time. But it gives it that gray, it gives it that complexity, which makes a character interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was good. I thought that episode was really good. I know a lot of people didn't like the episode with what's her name over in on the Eastern Shore.
Tara.
Tara
Yeah, the geography for this. Well, even
just the worst.
Even for the comics, it's just like there's no way this is the DC
They've
area.
Never seen Alexandria. Okay, it doesn't look anything like Southern Georgia. All right, it just doesn't. And there's no way you're getting into the bay from there. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's not happening. Not where she was. I thought, like, I took a lot of heat for it, but I said on Twitter, I thought this was one of the best episodes of the season thus far. Like, it was pretty good. You know, it was funny. It was serious. It was interesting. We learned a little bit. I would have liked it if they had mixed that story in with other stories so that it wasn't just that story. Because again, I just felt like you're just abandoning people for 5 episodes, and who knows what's happening with them. But I thought it was good world building. I thought it was a really interesting story that all these women had their husbands and sons and kids killed by the Saviors.
Right.
So I thought like it added depth to the Saviors of just how depraved they were.
Yeah.
So I mean I thought that was a really good episode. I know a lot of people didn't like that one. I thought as the season went on, it got better. The episodes got better until the final episode for the mid-season finale. I thought was the best one.
Yeah.
I didn't like the beginning. I didn't like. Again, I thought it was pretty much just murder porn. That's the story. There's really no other way to tell that.
I think
story.
I think it's funny though. That's something I tend to disagree with. I know a lot of people have talked about, it's more brutal than it's ever been before. I feel like it's just as brutal as the show's always been. Just personally, like I mean, there have been a lot of gruesome deaths on this show.
Yeah, but they're not usually they're usually perpetrated. Like there's not usually a lot of human on human.
So the fact that it's zombie, so that it's a human doing this, it's
and
that much worse.
And it's such a terrifying situation to be in.
I mean, zombie heads in a tank.
We barely saw. But again, it's zombie heads. Like there's zombies. Like
that were 4 people he killed. He lured in and killed them.
But we didn't see him do that.
Yeah, we did.
Not really. Yeah, but not really.
He killed the group of soldiers out at that outpost, and he killed the pilot of the helicopter. And those were we saw those were the people in the tanks.
But it's still like it doesn't have the same terror that scene does. Like that whole episode. Terminus wasn't nearly as terrifying. Not nearly as terrifying as that.
Yeah.
It's not nearly as graphic. The closest you can come to is Herschel's death, but even that doesn't play nearly as dark and as terrifying as Negan's
decapitation was
because he gets halfway through. But because like when he does it, it's almost like a fit of rage of just like it's impetuous.
Yeah,
like he doesn't really want to do it. He's just like so fed up. He's like, oh fuck it, and just cuts
he goes,
through,
and then he tries to cut,
and then he's like, I didn't get all the way through.
Yeah.
Whereas like Negan's torture and just the mind games that he's playing is so he's so in control of that. That's what makes that so terrifying,
right?
And so much darker and so much more uncomfortable to watch because it is so well thought out and so well planned.
Yeah,
like even just getting them to that point You mean you spent an hour and a half episode just to get them to that point where he could torture them in person.
Yeah, it's funny because when I read the comics, and maybe I'm looking too deep into the comics at this point, but I always feel like Negan is sort of a case for like this. I'm a system of government. I'm a system of civilization. We always were that needed violence, that wanted violence to satisfy this sort of, almost like, the military industrial type complex. He is very much an example of that. But that in the way that he operates, but also very much being the charismatic leader and fulfilling sort of a fantasy of
but that was also
who everybody wants to be.
Like the governor had that, and then he would have like the zombie fighting pits and stuff
like
that.
Right. With Negan in the comics, at least, I think it's a little bit more well developed because you see right now we're at a point in the story. I can't say anything because it could potentially spoil stuff that's happening currently on the show. But there is contrast between Negan and Rick, especially as the story continues about the way the two operate and the ideal that Rick is pursuing and sort of the base humanity, like human instinct, the worst of humanity that Negan taps into. And I think I can say that safely without spoiling anything.
Yeah, because it really didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It's that's kind of it. The great thing about zombie stories generally, when they're done well, is that it's a commentary on, what's happening in our society and what our fears are. And I don't know, like I feel like we kind of lost that a little bit in this show of like I'm not really sure what we're commentating on anymore.
Yeah.
And what are we really saying about anything anymore? And that's why I kind of feel like it's just murder porn at this point.
Yeah, and I guess that's why
we don't have that feeling of like, okay, well, this is actually a representation of our fear of the military-industrial complex, and this is a fear of government run amok, and this is a fear of a super disease, and this is the fear of dying, and this is the fear of intimacy. Like there is like it's just murdering.
Yeah, and I guess maybe it's just again. Because I have a perspective of where the show is going, where the story seems to be heading, or is likely to head, maybe that just creates a different expectation with me. I think ultimately that I feel I think honestly, if I wasn't a fan of the comic, I probably would feel just like everybody else.
But
to be perfectly honest.
But don't you think like that's a problem though?
Yeah, I do think so.
That tells you that it's not a good story. That's what's happening on TV isn't a good story. It's not being well done.
I think it could be done better, but I still enjoy it. There's still a lot of things.
Yeah, because you have a context of a future context. If you take away that context, you just admitted that you'd feel kind of like everybody else's, where it's just like this is kind of stupid.
I think,
Why
but
am
I
watching
don't.
This?
I mean, the thing is, I do know, like I watch a Batman story with certain expectations. That doesn't that does change the way you watch a Batman story. We've talked about
there's a difference between having expectations and then also knowing where it's gonna go. Like, I have an expectation that Batman's going to get out of it or whatever, but I don't necessarily know.
But that does change what you think of a story and does create certain,
I think you're missing my point. I think you're definitely missing my point here. My point is the show should be able to stand on its own. You shouldn't have to have the comic books as a reference point to go, man, just hang in there for another season and a half because then it's going to be a good story again.
Yeah, I find it entertaining when I watch it. So,
and that's okay. That's totally okay.
Yeah,
you can say, and a lot of people still do. But it's still good television. I don't. Yeah. Again, it's not must see TV for me anymore. I think that they've said everything that they have to say at this point, and that the show's going to go on because it's got millions of viewers. But I don't think that they have anything fresh to add to the conversation at this point.
Yeah,
and maybe another season or two down the road, they may again, kind of like the Simpsons did. Like they had like that.
Well, just because they're establishing these characters,
right? They're kind of reestablishing everything and kind of like recreating a new world for everybody to grow and develop in. And, it's going to have some bumps along the way. And maybe then they'll have something else to say, but I don't think they have anything to say right now.
Well, Whole New World is actually a title of the arc after All Out War, which is the next arc we're going into. So that's an interesting.
We'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, well, let us know what you think about this season of The Walking Dead so far. Is it worth watching for you anymore? Do you think either of us are crazy for our opinions? Particularly me. You can connect with us on social media. All of that is at certainpov.com. And until next week, stay scruffy, my nerf herders.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Head over to certainpov.com.